Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm a few minutes late. Okay, we're going to get started right away because I only have about an hour today. I have to teach a private lesson in an hour. So we're going to go ahead and start with my notes. Let me find my notes. Yeah, let's start here. Okay, how's everyone doing? All right, let's get started. So we're doing etymology today, and I'm going to continue with teaching from a historical standpoint about what time period created which English words. So, um, so lots of people ask me about how Latin became so important to English, um, because I always tell you that about 60% of our words come from Latin or Greek. And the reason why so many of our words come from Latin is because of the Roman occupation of Britain from 43 to 410 AD. The Romans occupied and controlled Britain during this time, and the Roman language was Latin. So, so this is how it had happened. So between this period of time, between 55 or what was it? So that's a long time. So Latin became the main administrative, military, legal, and urban planning language. And lots of local people adopted Latin words, especially in trade, law, and government. Um, okay, so let's just take a look very quickly at some words. For example, the word street. The word street, it comes from the Roman via strata, where strata means a paved way. So street comes from the Roman word strata, meaning street. Hello, Ornella. Hello, Olia. It comes from the Latin word valum, because in Latin they did not have the W, so it was actually a V. And Hadrian's Wall was one of the most famous walls that was built by uh, the Romans. Well, no, it was built by the English to keep out the Romans. I can't remember. No. That was the wall they constructed. That was their northern border. I remember now. Okay. Okay, so the word street, the word wall, the word port. A port, meaning a harbor, comes from the Latin word portus, which means door. The word door in Latin, basically. Um, so ports became a big thing during the Roman times. Chester. How many English towns can you think of that are named Chester? like Manchester, Lancaster, Lister, right? All of these Chester, Castor, Cester words, Winchester, that's right. All of those, the last part of the word comes from the Latin word castra, meaning camp. So this was man camp and land camp and lay camp. That's what that really meant. Okay, so all those names were originally Roman fortifications. The colonies, the word colony, comes from the Latin word colonia, which originally meant a settlement or a farm. Because the Romans were they were big colonizers. The Romans, they attacked places and would try to take over places, but they also sent people out to just settle and colonize. To mint, to make coins, to make money. That was something that comes from the Latin word moneta, which is where we also get the word money. Why is money spelled the way it is? Because it comes from the Latin word moneta. The word wine. Wine comes from the Latin word vinum. And the Romans were big drinkers. They liked wine. And so they introduced wine culture to all of Europe, really. I mean, they all had wines. They all had their own variations of alcohol. But the Roman culture, wine was such an important part of the Roman culture that it became more important throughout Europe. The word pound. The word pound meaning a unit of the British use the pound as the dollar, right? And we use it for weighing things, right? How many pounds are you? That's what we say in the U.S. We don't use kg in the U.S. We use pounds. And it comes from the Latin word pondus. Kitchen comes from the Latin word I think is it coquina or cochina? I'm not sure. Coquina. I'm not sure. Ornella, is it a qua sound, like a QU or QW or QU sound? Or is it just a K, coquina? Anyway, that's where we get the word kitchen. And that's also where we get the word cook. To cook comes from a similar word. It's a K sound. That's okay. So it's coquina. All right. All right. And then the word mile. A mile. What is a mile? That comes from the Latin word mille, meaning 1,000, because it was 1,000 paces. Okay, a Roman mile equals 1,000 paces. 1,000 paces is about 1,480 meters. That's 1 mile. So if you want to blame anybody, you know how everybody's talking about how the Americans don't use the metric system and we use pounds and we use miles? Well, we use pounds and miles because of the Romans. The Romans are to blame. Right? The word mile comes from mille, and the word pound comes from pondus. Okay? So there you go. To wallop. Have you guys ever heard this word? To wallop? To wallop? It means to hit someone. He walloped me. He really walloped me means he really hit me hard. And that might come from the Latin word volvere or valum, meaning to roll. They're not sure about this one, though. It says it could have Germanic influence also. But to wallop someone is a slang kind of a word that just means to hit someone really hard. Anchor, the word anchor is a ship mooring device. The thing that you use to stop the ship from moving is called an anchor. It comes from the Latin word ancora, which comes from the Greek word ancura. Pestle. You guys know what a pestle is? A pestle is the thing that you use in the kitchen for mashing spices, right? It's like a stone bowl usually, or a wooden bowl, and you use something. And the pestle is the thing you hold, and I think that the bowl is called the mortar, a mortar and pestle, and it comes from the Latin word pistolum, which means to pound. And pesto sauce. Oh, Ornella, I never thought about that. Wow, that's funny. I never thought about that. Yeah, pesto. Pestle. Funny. I never made that connection. Never made that connection. Interesting. I did always wonder why is it called pesto? Now I know. See, etymology, everyone. The word cup comes from the Latin word cuppa, meaning a drinking vessel. The word chest comes from the Latin word cista, meaning a box. Butter comes from the Latin word. The word sack comes from the Latin word saccus. Okay, then we also have some military words, administrative words like camp. Camp, as we said earlier, comes from Latin. So the word camp and castra and chester and any of those endings that sound like Chester, those all mean camp. The word Senate. A Senate is a governing council. It also comes from the Latin word senatus, right? They were the first Senate. The word forum. What is a forum? What is a forum? Now, when we talk about forum, a forum is a place where people gather to discuss things, right? And the original forum was a Roman public square. It was an area where people would come to discuss things publicly. Okay? That was the forum. Then we have the word legion, which comes from the Latin word legio. Tribune, tribunus, tribunus. And then this one is kind of funny, colonel, which is pronounced colonel, which comes from the word columnella, little column, or colonnello. So this one is a military rank, and it actually comes from the Italian word colonnello, but the pronunciation is colonel. It's a very strange thing, this word. It actually has French and Italian roots. There are religious and legal terms like priest. Priest comes from the Latin word presbyter. Presbyteros, meaning elders. The word altar, temple, all of these come from Latin. And how many places do you know that have the letter C-O-L in them? Like, for example, Lincoln. Lincoln. The C-O-L in Lincoln comes from the C-O-L meaning colony. So there are some places that have the name, have the letters C-O-L in the name, and that means that was once a colony. Okay. Now I want to go back to the next section. All right, one moment. So I'm going to tell you a funny story. Well, not a funny story, but well, it's kind of funny. Um, there's do you guys know who Neil Armstrong is? Do you know who Neil Armstrong is? Some of you may have heard me tell this story before, but if not, it's a good story. Who is Neil Armstrong? That's right, first man on the moon. And his name is Armstrong, and that name originally from Scotland. And after he went to the moon, he came back and he was traveling around, and he wanted to go to his ancestral city, his ancestral village, right? He wanted to go to the village where his family comes from. So he visited there, and when he got there, the mayor of the town brought out a piece of paper. It was a law that was written 400 years earlier. And that law, it said, if you find any Armstrong in town, you should hang them. You should kill them. What's the deal? But the Armstrong family was a Scottish family that lived on the border of Scotland and England. And there were many families that lived on this border area. Those families were called the Border Reaver families. Okay? And Reaver was the word that meant to steal, to rob. They were the Reavers. And this is because the English thought they were wrong, right? So English is the language, right? So this is where I told you language has power. So, because the language says that they are called the Reavers, and Reaver means robber. So the English were calling them robbers, basically. So the word reeve is a word that means to rob. A reaver is a robber or raider. And the Armstrongs were from this family, and that's why the law said you should kill them, because they were robbers. If you've ever means to be sad, someone, especially by death, right? So you kill someone, you take their stuff, you have bereaved them. But bereaved has a second meaning. It means to feel sad because someone killed somebody in your family. And why is it bereaved? Because they used to kill each other all the time over these border fights, right? So they were bereaved. So originally it meant to take something from someone by killing them, but it eventually became the word that means to be sad because someone died. Bereft. To be bereft means to not have something, to be deprived of something. They stole it from you. Okay? To retrieve. Retrieve means to get something back, right? Because when they would steal it, then they would go and get it back. That's to retrieve. And again, it has the same word reeve in there. Reaver, right? The word blackmail. Blackmail was the term that they used back then. Rent. In Scotland, the word for rent was so illegal rent that they didn't owe any money to anyone. But the English would come and say, you owe us money. You better give us money or we're going to attack you. That is where we get the term blackmail from. It means illegal rent. Blackmail means illegal rent because the British were trying to make them pay money. Okay? And it was actually the Reavers too. The Reavers would do it to the British. They would say, pay us money or we'll raid you. Okay? And a raid is a sudden attack or incursion. The word raid also comes from this term. The Scottish, it comes from to rob, also robber, to grieve. What does grieve mean? Means to be sad, right? Because somebody stole your stuff or killed your family, so now you're grieving. And again, it has the same word. Okay, that also comes from this whole fight. The word loot. Loot actually comes from Hindi. So this word actually didn't exist during this time period, but it refers to stolen goods. It came from the same idea. From it, so it's later in British colonization period that this term comes around. A foray. Foray is not a common word, but it's a word that means it means an adventure now, right? An interesting foray into something would be an interesting adventure or exploration or trip or investigation into something. But now, but the original word just meant a sudden raid. And then there are a few more words here. Spoil. Spoils. The spoils of war. If you've ever heard that term, the spoils of war. Spoils comes from the Latin word spolium, meaning plunder. And the word brag comes from the Norse word braggr, meaning a poet, because when you had a fight, when you had a raid, when you attacked someone, that's how they would celebrate their wins, right? So the word brag actually comes from the term that means to write poetry or songs about your fight. You're bragging. You're boasting. You are singing about how great you are in battle. That's bragging. Okay? Okay. I think that story is really interesting. And again, all these words, reeve, reaver, bereaved, bereft, retrieve, grieve, grievance, they all have that same reeve sound in them because they come from the word reaver. Okay, hello Fun. Do I live stream every day? Guys, I don't have a schedule, okay? I just don't. All right? I don't get paid for what I do, so I come when I can come. That's all I can tell you. All right? If you want me to be here, then you need to do something more to support me. It's not fair that you ask me, when am I going to be here for you, but you don't do anything to help me. Right? So this is where it becomes a little difficult for me because I have a life and I have many things to do. So I want to be here to help you, but I'm not paid for any of this. So I don't think it's fair to have a schedule, to be honest with you. I don't think it's fair to expect me to have a schedule since I'm not paid. Okay? So here's what I will tell you. I am good at what I do. I care about learning. I care about teaching. If you really want to learn, then you should follow me and you should get my notifications and you should care enough to come. Okay? I know that sounds a little harsh and maybe a little bit arrogant, but I do what I can. All right? I do what I can when I can. Okay? And if you support me more, then maybe I'll be here more and be here more regularly. But it just doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. I know you want me to be here, but I don't get paid. Okay? It's really simple. Okay? So just follow. Just follow. I'm glad you like what I do because that's why you ask. You ask when am I going to be here because you like what I do. And I'm glad you like what I do. But I just don't feel like living under the pressure of having a schedule when I don't get paid for any of this, and it makes me feel bad. Or not it doesn't make me feel bad. It makes me feel like I'm being used. When I show up to do something every single day, but I'm not being paid for it, it doesn't feel good for me. Okay? So, just follow. Just follow, just follow, just follow. Here's my website. Here is my YouTube channel. You can go check it out. And if you're really interested in learning English, every good tip that I have about learning English is already on my YouTube channel. Okay? Every tip I have about grammar, vocabulary, reading, writing, listening, speaking, pronunciation, accent, interviews, every single bit of advice that I have already given it. It's all there. It's on my YouTube channel. But you have to go watch it. And it does require patience. And most people don't have patience, so they don't watch. Okay? I'm sorry to be harsh about it, but sometimes it triggers me a little bit when people ask me what's my schedule. I understand why you want to know my schedule, but I can't give you one because I have to prioritize many other things in my life that are more important or that I get paid for. Okay? So I can't prioritize this when I don't get paid. Okay? Okay. I hope you guys can understand that. I hope you guys can understand. Let me do a few more words. Let's go back to doing some more useful terms. One moment. Yeah, let's do this. Okay, we're going to look at some words that came from the Industrial Revolution. So the Industrial Revolution gave us many English words. Okay? When they were building machines and cities were being built and became much bigger, and commerce reshaped the world, really. So during this time period, 1760 to 1900s, right around the early 1900s, that's the industrialization. And here are some words that we got from the Industrial Revolution. The word factory. The word factory comes from the Latin word factorium, meaning a place of making. And the word fact. What is a fact? What is a fact? Diego says it's data, and that's actually a very good and Latin. It actually just means a thing that exists. So when you say it's a fact, it's a thing, it exists, it's real. That's a fact. That's where we get the word fact from. It means a thing. So what is a factory? It's a place that makes things. That's where we get the word fact in there. Factory. Okay, it's a place for making things. Okay, things are real. That makes them factual. Okay? Engineer. An engineer is a funny word. The original word engineer meant somebody who built machines for war. Right? So everybody that had a military, everybody who had an army, they had engineers that were supposed to try to create new, crazy machines for killing people. They were war machines. And the word engineer comes from the Latin word ingenium, which means clever. It was clever. And they're fighting each other. But you see the other army, they have some new equipment. They have some new device. They have some new machine to kill people. And you've never seen this machine before. You think, wow, that's clever. Look at this clever new machine they made, this clever new device they made. So the word engineer actually comes from the word meaning clever, because somebody would say, oh, look what they made. That's very clever. So the word engine. An engine is a machine that was clever. It was a clever machine. Okay, it was a way to move more efficiently, right? So it was clever. Steam became very popular during that time period because steam was a very popular form of new power. Steam engines, right? They had steam trains, they had steam boats, they had lots of different steam machines. So steam became very popular then. The word locomotive is the old word that means train, a train. And locomotive, so loco meaning locus, meaning a place, and modus meaning motion. So locomotive means to move from place to place. Locomotive, to move from place to place. Railway, that comes from the old French word rail, meaning an iron bar. And the word way is an old English word that means the road. So railway means the iron bar road. That's what it means. The railway means the iron bar road. That's what that means. Industrial comes from the Latin word industria, meaning diligent or activity. Active. Okay? They were industrial. Manufacture. The word manu meaning manus, hand, and facere meaning to make. So manufacture means to make by hand. To make by hand, manufacture. There are many words that have M-A-N-U in the beginning of them. Mechanic. Mechanic comes from the Latin word mechanicus, which was the original word meaning engineer, like somebody who worked or fixed things was a mechanic. Fix them. Right? To manipulate them. Yeah. Labor comes from the Latin word that means the same thing. It means effort. So this word has not changed a lot. Look how many words, or how many years we've been using this word with no change. In Latin, the word labor, right? Pronounced differently, but still, the spelling is the same. So for 2,000 some years, we've been using the word labor. I think we need to retire the word labor. I think we need to retire labor. Talis, meaning principle, most important. And that comes from the word caput, meaning head. So, yeah, the head, the chief, the principal. So in this case, it would be basically like saying capital comes from the rich people. They're the head. They have the money. They're the investors. The word corporation. Now this one I like. This one I like. This is funny. What is a corporation? What is a corporation? It's a company, right? But this word corporation has an interesting background. It comes from the Latin word corporare, which it has two possible meanings. One possible meaning of corporare means to form into a body, to make a body. That's where we get the word corporeal from. Corporeal is an advanced English word that means to have a body, to have a form. Non-corporeal would mean to not have a body, like a ghost. A ghost is a non-corporeal form. Okay, a human is a corporeal form. It has a body. But so a corporation is a body of people, right? It's people that form a new body, right? But the word corporation has a second meaning. It also can mean to kill you. So I think it's actually kind of poignant. It's quite apt that the word corporation could mean a body, forming a body, but it actually could also mean to kill you. And that's what they do. Corporations kill people all the time. They just do it through business. In medieval times, there were lots of corporations of arts and jobs. That's right. Yeah, because originally the word just meant to form into a body, right? It was a group of people. A body meaning a group, right? So when it was meant for organization, right? You're trying to organize a group of people. So you had many different corporations, and that's as a business, I feel like they've earned their original second meaning now as meaning to kill you. Marxism, the proletariat is the working class. And it comes from the Latin word proletarius, meaning citizen of the lowest class. Entrepreneur. Entrepreneur. This comes from the French word meaning to undertake, to begin something, right? So entrez-vous, right? Meaning enter, right? So to enter into something, to do something, to enter into some activity is to undertake. Okay, so that's the word entrepreneur. And just look at the beginning of the word entre, meaning to enter, right? So you're entering into a business. You're an entrepreneur. Let's see. Diego says, in the imaginary case that a person who speaks modern English went back to the past and met a Latin-speaking person, would communication be possible? Very unlikely. Very unlikely. Diego, the truth is, if you, when they make movies about medieval times, that's one of the things that's most interesting and funny to me, is they never changed the language enough. If they did, you wouldn't understand. There are very few movies that are historically accurate with linguistics because they can't. If they were, you wouldn't understand anything that was said in the movie and everybody would be bored. So, definitely not Latin. If you went back to the Roman period and you speak English, they would not understand you at all. But even in, there were times in in English history where the main language was a form of French. There were times in English history where the main language, the form of English was Old English, and you wouldn't understand it. If you saw it, you wouldn't understand it. Okay, I'll show you some Old English in just a minute, and then you'll see what I mean. Okay, let's finish these words. Production comes from the Latin word productio, meaning to bring forth, to produce, right? Ductio, meaning to bring forward. Assembly line comes from the Latin word assimilare, meaning to gather together. That's also where we get the word assimilate. The word strike, this is kind of a funny one. I like this word. What is a strike? What is a strike, everyone? What is a strike? Ah, that's one meaning. To strike is to hit something, but the word strike has a noun form. Strike the conversation means to end the conversation. That's correct. But there is a more popular form of the word strike that has to do with work. What is a strike? If I say we're going on strike, what does that mean? Yeah, Ornella, it means to stop work, right? A strike is when your company feels that the business is not being run well. Sorry, not your company. The employees. The employees feel that the bosses are not running the company well. They are mad. They want something. So they say, we are not going to work until you give us this. That's called a strike. And this word comes from boats. To strike the sails meant to pull the sails down on the boat, move. Without the sails, it will not move. So to strike the sails meant to bring the sails down so the boat doesn't move anymore. To strike at work means to stop working so the company doesn't move anymore. Okay? That's interesting, I think. And maybe if you watch some old movies with pirates or some kind of boats, you might hear them say, strike the sails. That's what that means. Okay? The word union, a union, comes from the Latin word unio, meaning oneness. Right? Any word that has UNI in it probably means something about one. University, unique, unicorn, they all have to do with something meaning one. Urbanization comes from the Latin word urbanus, meaning city. Okay? Pollution comes from the Latin word polluere, meaning to defile. To defile basically means to make it dirty. Okay? Defile is a very advanced word that means to make something dirty. Okay? So pollution comes from the Latin word meaning to make something dirty. All right? Just a few more words. The word engine, we said. Dynamo. A dynamo is an electrical generator. That comes from the Greek word dynamos, meaning power. Motor comes from the Latin word motor, meaning mover. Revolution, revolutio, meaning to roll back. Okay, to roll back, a revolution, a major change. Energy comes from the Latin word, the Greek word energia. Then the electricity comes from the Greek word electron. All right, so these are all words that came from the industrial age, industrial revolution. Tenement. A tenement is a word that means an apartment building. It's not a very common word. It's kind of a formal word. But it comes from the Latin word tenementum, meaning you're holding. So a tenement is the apartment building. A tenant is someone who lives in the tenement building. Slum. That's actually from the Irish slum, meaning alley. So slum is like a poor area. Okay? And it comes from the word meaning like alleys, because usually that's where the poor areas are, is in the alleys. City. To commute, meaning to go back and forth from work, comes from the Latin word commutare, meaning to change, because you're changing from work, or from home to work, from home to work, from home to work. You're commuting. Okay, let's see. Could I clarify the word coffee? Where does the word coffee come from? Yeah, there's a good story about that one too. So the word coffee has a long history. So in the 1600s, it was coffee spelled Koffie. That was Dutch. But before that, it was Arabic, kawa, meaning coffee. And before that, it comes from the Kaffa region of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is where coffee is from originally, okay? And there's a region in Ethiopia called Kaffa, and that is where the plant originally came from, okay? Can I explain a bit about the word dogmatic? Is it even common? It's not common. It's only common if you talk about religious things a lot. It's a word that's almost always used when discussing religion. If your views are dogmatic, it means that your views are based on religious religious thought or religious belief, not necessarily on factual data. Okay? Let's look at that word for just a minute since you're asking. Oh, and I need to go. I'm going to just do this. Explain the etymology of dogmatic. Is dogma a rule? Dogma is like a way of thinking. To be dogmatic, it's a view. It's a philosophy. I think they're like moralistic rules, or arrogant way. But usually that's because they're from religion, right? So when you assert yourself and you say this is more than that, then you're basing it only on the authority that you have, that it can't possibly be not true. That's not enough, right? That's dogmatic, right? If you're unwilling to hear opposing views, then that's a dogmatic speech, all right? So dogmatikos is the Greek word that means pertaining to doctrines or beliefs, right? So your dogma means that which you think is good or you think is right, okay? That's your view, okay? Let's see. So dogma became associated with the church decrees, right? So even in the church, they used this word to say that this is our official beliefs and doctrines that were laid down. This is our dogma, meaning you can't disagree. You can't disagree. Okay? And dogmatic came to mean rigid adherence to any belief without openness to question. Right? So if your views are dogmatic, it means that you're not willing to listen to me question it. You're not willing to listen to me ask questions. Okay? So dogma means a principle or set of principles laid down by an authority as incontrovertibly true, usually about religion. Okay? The tendency to lay down principles as undeniably true without consideration of evidence or opposing views is dogmaticism. Dogmatism. Not dogmaticism. Dogmatism. A dogmatist is a person who asserts their opinions in an arrogant manner. Okay? How about the person who doesn't change his or her mind? Can we say you're dogmatic? Possibly. It depends on what they don't change their mind about, right? I don't think if they're arguing about, liking vanilla ice cream, No, you wouldn't say that's dogmatic. If they're arguing about, um, if they're arguing about things like, uh, should women work in the workplace? You know, should women work? And if your viewpoints are based on religion and they say no, and you're not willing to listen to anybody talk to you about it, then that's dogmatic. Okay? The word sandwich comes from the Earl of Sandwich. He was a British noble, and this is a man who liked to gamble a lot. He liked to play cards specifically. He liked to play cards a lot, okay? And his name was the Earl of Sandwich. And because he liked to play cards so much, he did not want to leave the table to go eat. He didn't want to leave the table to go eat, so his servants brought him some meat between two pieces of bread, so he could hold the meat and bread with one hand while playing cards with the other hand. That's where we get the word sandwich from. The Earl of Sandwich. He was a man. He liked to play cards. He didn't want to leave the table, so they made him a sandwich. Okay, I need to go. I have a lesson to teach. I will see you guys next time. I'll be back tomorrow for sure. I am going to do at least, I will tell you this, okay? Monday through Friday, I'll be here in the morning, my morning. Okay? Monday through Friday, I'll be here in the morning. I might be here more than that. Maybe I'll do an extra voice room or an extra live stream in the evening or in the afternoon, okay? But I'm not going to promise more than just 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, something, okay? I'll be here in the morning, somewhere around 9, 9:30, 10, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's my time. You figure out your own time. You do the math, okay? And Monday through Friday, I'll be here to teach something about English, okay? Maybe I'll do more, but if you want me if you want to follow me more, then just follow me. Just come when you get a notification, all right? Okay, I have to go. I have a lesson, so I'll see you guys next time. Thanks. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you, Ornella.